Hi everyone, a little simple video today. On a number of my videos I get people commenting about how much I use the handbrake or get my pupils to use the handbrake, and in fact how we use the handbrake. So we're just going to have a little look and I'll let you know my thoughts. So straight from the off, the handbrake on this car is one of the more conventional ones. It's not like one of the newer style handbrakes which are electronically operated, but my new car that comes in the new year is. So when I get it, we'll have a little look on how that works. But we've got the older style conventional handbrake that we're going to be looking at today, and quite simply, although we all call it a handbrake, it's really a parking brake, and that's when we should be using it. Quite simply, I say to my pupils, if you're stopped for more than 2 or 3 seconds, you should put your handbrake on. Now, occasionally, we've had comments to say that why do we use it this much? Well, the car's a lot safer if you apply the handbrake. For example, even in a queue of traffic, if you were to get hit from behind, would your foot stay on a foot brake? Maybe, but maybe not. And you're likely to be going hurled forward into that car that's in front of you. But if your handbrake's on, what that's then going to mean is that you still may get pushed forward. However, you may not go quite as far. And to be honest, I did have an instructor who worked for us a couple of years back who had an accident on a major road in Liverpool where a lorry hit a vehicle probably 2 or 3 cars back, and my instructor, because he did keep the correct distance from the vehicle that was in front of them and he used the handbrake, he was the last vehicle in the accident. In other words, he only got hit from behind. He didn't then go off into that vehicle in front. So using the handbrake for if you stopped more than 2 or 3 seconds is the advice that I actually give my pupils. Having the handbrake on as well also gives you an aid to moving off quicker as well. Just for example, if you're waiting at the front of a roundabout ready to emerge, having the handbrake on is going to allow you then to swap your right foot to the accelerator pedal, so you're actually quicker away. But it does mean that you've got to coordinate the use of your gas and use of clutch and the release of the handbrake all at the same time, which is sometimes too much for people. But honestly, it's a quicker way out onto the roundabout because you don't have to swap your foot from the brake pedal to the accelerator. So that's one benefit. But don't forget, we've just done a roundabout video recently where people get hit from behind at roundabouts. Would that then maybe lessen the risk of you being catapulted onto the roundabout if that was to happen? Of course it would. Another useful aspect of using a handbrake is in a queue. If your car rolls whatsoever as you're moving away, you're at risk of maybe rolling into the car if it's really close behind, or a pedestrian that's walked behind your car or anything like that. So any little roll that you have out on the road is potential risk. So try and stop these from happening. And the way to do it is to use your handbrake. If you stop for more than 2 or 3 seconds, get it on. It's not a problem. If you don't use the handbrake in this particular way, what you're actually doing is just sitting with your foot on the foot brake all the time. You're actually dazzling people, especially at night. So this is another useful aspect of putting the handbrake on. Let's have a look now on how to use it. Now, people get this wrong more than you think, and it affects them actually on their driving lessons massively, particularly moving off. So let's have a little look. I'm going to give my brake pedal a little squeeze because we're slightly downhill in where I'm parked, so we don't want to roll away. And remember, there is a coordination between your right foot on the foot brake and your handbrake being on. Once you're stopped, one of them should be on at all times, remember. So to release the handbrake, if we look closely, what we've actually got to do is not just press the button. People often do that and it can ruin the actual mechanism. So what you actually need to do, rather than just going for the button first, I'm going to demonstrate it. That sound, that clicking sound, will eventually ruin the mechanism. So what you actually need to do if you look closely at the handbrake, is slightly lift first. And what that does, it takes the pressure off the handbrake so the button can be pressed easily. So that's an important part to it, to lift slightly first before you go for the button. And this is the main thing that delays novice drivers from moving away. When they get stuck with taking the handbrake off, this is usually the key. They go for the button first. So try and remember, a little lift and then press the button in. And then when you release the handbrake, this is another mistake that novice drivers do. They tend to throw the handbrake off, or they let go of the button before the handbrake has been released fully, and then it doesn't actually release properly and fully and go all the way down to the bottom. So to release, lift, button, all the way down and let go, and that's it. But there's a couple of little things in there maybe that are affecting you on your driving lessons. What about putting the handbrake back on? We get all sorts of comments again on my videos about me using the Ratchet sometimes, or letting my pupils use the Ratchet. It's an absolute myth if you use the handbrake in this way that you're going to wear it out. Have any of you used a Ratchet when you're actually doing a nut or a bolt up? Well, they're designed in the same way. So if you use that handbrake in that particular way, you're not going to wear it out. It's not going to be an issue. You might very well annoy a few people. However, it's not a problem. And it's not a problem on your test. However, I'm going to show you how to use the handbrake in the supposed correct way that we've all probably been brought up thinking, okay? And that's using the button on the way back up. So I'm going to take it off again. Lift, button, release. So what you actually need to do first is get used to the pressure that you need that's going to hold your car still. And what I tend to do with my students is I get them to lift the handbrake to 4 clicks. And I know my handbrake is adjusted correctly, and those 4 clicks, it's generally strong enough to hold the car, okay? If it's not, you might have to use 5 or even 6, but if that's the case, I would suggest taking your car to a garage and getting the handbrake adjusted. So with the button, it's simple. You press the button in, you lift and hold the handbrake until you feel the same pressure as I've just explained. Then it's really important to keep the pressure lifted up and then let go of your thumb and then let go of the pressure. Another tip that I would like to put across to people is try and use the handbrake without looking at it. Because quite often my pupils, until I've stopped this habit, will be coming up towards a set of lights perhaps that are on red. And as soon as they stop, they look down and start to use the handbrake, but the lights in front of them have actually changed and maybe they don't need the handbrake. So try and remember, always eyes out in front of you. You should be able to operate all of these controls without looking at them. Another tip which might be pretty useful for some people to keep in mind is if you ever hear creaking on your handbrake or funny noises coming from the handbrake when it's on, simply it's not on tight enough. Your car should be held firmly and positively with the pressure that you apply on the handbrake. So if you ever hear any creaking, click that handbrake up a notch. I hope that's been pretty useful for a few people. Now, I know most people who have been experienced drivers for a number of years, that's not going to be a big deal. But for those who are learning, the handbrake often causes problems as people are setting off because they don't release or apply it properly. They then get in a little muddle with the feet and maybe stall. So I hope that's helped. Going forward though, I think most of us, when we're going to be driving over the next 5 or 10 years, are going to be in vehicles with electric parking brakes. So we'll have a little look at them when I get my new car. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all soon.